What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Drewbie. Welcome back to Call the Damn Leads. This is the show by sales professionals for sales professionals. Again, I'm your host, Drewbie Wilson, with more than 2 decades in sales. I've been through it. I've heard about it. I've seen a lot. Now I'm bringing it to you, my favorite people in the world, the sales community, because this is literally the greatest job on earth. Doesn't matter where you come from, what background, what you've been through, you can find a place in sales and make an absolute amazing life. And today's guest is someone I'm very excited to have on. He and I recently met when I spoke for one of our friends, Adam McChesney, at the Builders of Authority live event. He and I met, we connected, and since then have had a really good time building a relationship. And what I love about this guy is he likes to keep it real. No fluff, no mess. He's just a straight shooter. And the best thing about him is that he really cares about the people that he works with. And this is something that you'll hear me talk about on the show all the time. But service is, above all, the best way to make sales. And my friend, the owner of Marks Jewelers, Mr. Charles Marks, is in the house. What's up, brother?
What's happening, Mr. Drew? We were at the Builders of Authority live event, and I got to tell you, there was a lot of fantastic folks there doing presentations, but man, I clicked. A real salesperson can spot another real salesperson from afar, and you were hitting all these buttons for me, man. And I was like, I get a lot from being in your circle, being in your sphere. You know, iron sharpens iron. And I think those of us that have this other gear, you know, that some of our coworkers maybe didn't have, man, we kind of need each other. We're like a rare species of bird, my friend. That's just kind of how I'm saying that.
I love that. And that's why I built this show, because I love to find other consummate sales professionals, bring them in, share some stories. And really, this is the greatest thing, because you can grow from anywhere and any background and make a massive life out of the sales industry. And so, first and foremost, man, you've been in the sales a long time. We've talked a lot offline. I want the people to know. I want to hear your craziest sales story, brother. Bring it in.
Yeah, so I've got a few, but this one is really instructional. There's a lot of lessons to be learned from it, you know, so I'm going to get into it. So I was a traveling jewelry salesman. So I don't know, there's a local jeweler that advertises heavily, you know, Shane Company, and they say, we don't deal with middlemen. Well, I was a middleman. Like, I would go to New York City, I would buy closeouts from manufacturers. I would take them back and I would sell them, drive in my car with like 150, 200 grand worth of jewelry, go from store to store, independent jewelers in these small towns, and sell them jewelry. That was the job. So I'm in Joliet. I'm in Chicago and Joliet. And there's a really super nice jeweler there. My product didn't line up with his needs, but he would buy something. You know what I'm saying? Just to give a brother some love, you know what I mean? Let a guy get some gas money. I'm in there and my week has gone to shit. Chicago's a tough territory. There's more jewelers in Chicago in one building on Wabash than there is in the entire state of Missouri, to give you any kind of context of what the competition's like. It's pretty fierce up there, okay? You had to hustle up. Anyway, I'm in this guy's store and I had these little pearl box sets, necklace, bracelet, earrings. They were like stupid cheap, like $25 a set, you know, and his daughter's getting married. So he's buying a dozen or so of them, whatever. While I'm in their store and I'm doing my job, I got to be polite, professional. I'm a guest. If they got to wait on customers, I got to wait. You know what I'm saying? Like a server at a restaurant. I got to step back and wait for my opportunity. Well, man, this guy comes bouncing in. He's wearing a suit. And he's just all like bipolar, and today was manic day. And he's bouncing in, he comes in. One thing about jewelry stores, okay, Drew, when somebody walks behind the case line without having to be granted that permission or escorted or whatever, they're either the owner's brother. He obviously wasn't a jeweler, okay? He's the owner's brother, you know, he's a family member, his kid works there. There's some strong connection. It was obvious he wasn't in the industry. And he starts telling the jeweler about this guy he knows that wants to open a store. This guy was in medical sales, durable medical sales equipment, and he wanted to open a store. And the jeweler is like, I could tell everybody was like kind of put off by this guy. Like he wears them out quickly. And hopefully I'm not wearing you guys out quickly with my story here. David is the name of the jeweler. He goes, "What are you telling me for? Tell him," and points to me because I'm the wholesaler, right? So this guy turns and he hands me the lead. Call this guy. He wants to open a store. Blah, 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 blah. And I couldn't even tell you. So my week is shit. A lot of people talk shit and want to get into jewelry. And you're either born into it, you marry into it, or you pay the price of admission through the front door and it's heavy. And you also got to learn a lot of mistakes and hopefully you survive it. I wouldn't recommend it unless you worked in a small business somewhere long enough that you kind of knew what you need to know. That being said, we get leads like this all the time and they're usually bullshit, like hard bullshit. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm about planning the work and working the plan, right? I had so many I had so many phone calls I had to make. I got so many people, they didn't really give me an appointment. They didn't say yes, but they didn't say no. And I felt like I could get the bag open, and that's the job. You know, if I get the bag open, I got a chance to sell something. So I had run my appointments. Now I'm cold calling, right? That's the backup, plan B. See if there's opportunities you can generate. You couldn't get a yes on the phone. Mind you, I'm in Joliet. There's a big prison in Joliet. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So at the end, like not too far from the prison, there's this little strip center with this liquor store and then like maybe a laundromat or something and this other jeweler. And I pull in, I'm like, okay, in my directory, you know, we got a jeweler's directory. It's got their credit rating, their location, whatnot. I get my bag, I go in, and this dude, and we're talking what, 2006, 2005. This is before neck tattoos were popular. Like if you had a neck tattoo back then, like you were like OG, right? OG, right? Mm-hmm. And your boy didn't have a grill, but he had a lot of gold teeth. You know what I'm saying? And I walked through the door with my bag and he's just smiling. I'm like, "Hey, it's nice to meet you too, man. You know, what you smile?" And he points to the dudes that are sitting outside the liquor store. He goes, "Man, I can't believe that you made it across the parking lot with them sitting there." And I'm like, fuck me, you know, because that's our biggest thing, getting robbed. You know, that's what we're really up on gear for. And a guy wearing a friggin' jacket, collared shirt, wheeling a damn suitcase on wheels into a jewelry store, even if it is half pawn shop, whatever, it isn't hard to put that together. So I figured out there wasn't much opportunity there and I need to get out of there. I exit, you know, thanks, you know, nice to meet you, blah, 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 and leave, get out of there. I'm in the phone and I'm just like, I live in St. Louis. It's 4 or 5 hours home. My week was shit. It was like probably one of the worst weeks of the year. You know what I'm saying? For production and sales. I call my wife. I tell her about this lead. I tell her what went on and she's supportive and helps me get my mindset back. And maybe I finished the day. I don't remember what else happened the rest of that week. I don't remember if I pulled it out and hit my numbers or what. But I followed up on this guy and he wanted to open a jewelry store. And how are we doing on time, Drew?
You're good. Cool you're about 10 minutes in, so let's get to it because I got some things I want to pull out of this, but I'm loving the story so far because I've been through the hood, man, and I know that game.
Barely have scratched the surface, baby. Let me tell you. I'm a salesman. I'll talk all night if you let me. So the long story shorter, I set up a meeting with this guy and his wife, and we wound up, I had to book a Comfort Inn hotel, the conference room somewhere or breakfast area to do this, and we met. And he was in Southern Illinois. And I kind of start trying to tell him, how to put together a jewelry store, how to inventory a jewelry store. He just wants to do this as legacy for his family. Mm. Like he tried to buy other people's stores. Nobody wanted to sell. He wanted to do a legacy thing. I truly tried to talk him out of it. I sincerely, in a first meeting, I'm like, brother, you're not going to make money. This isn't what you think. This is going to be a lot harder than what you're expecting. And I sincerely try to talk him out of it. If you want to make money, you open a pawn shop. That you'll make money at. I'll circle back to that. So we met, no close, but we got further. We set up a subsequent meeting. We did it again, dog and pony show. This time I was really expecting to get the order if we were going to do it. Nothing. And I was getting a little worn out smooth with this dude. I'm like, fuck you. I'm done with you. We're over it. Then he starts getting motivated, I guess, and he's calling. I'm his shit's going to voicemail. I'm not returning his calls. I'm not taking his calls. I don't give a fuck. Okay. So I had a business partner at the time who had a guy in the office, and they're like, Chuck, I'm going to change his name just so we don't have any unintended consequences. We're going to call this guy Doug. He said, Doug's been calling you at the store. He's been calling the shop. He wants, you got to call Doug. You got to call Doug. And they're all like worked up in the light. I'm like, you don't fucking get it. Doug can chill his ass out a minute. So then finally, I let a little bit of time go by, maybe a week. And I send him an email basically saying, look, my time is priority. I've got other people that need to see me. I can accommodate a meeting. But basically, if it's going to be a bunch of bullshit, forget it. Okay, so this time he called and he was apologetic. He apologized for leading me on 2 other times. Came really correct. I said, okay, fine. The order was 120 grand when my average order was about 3,000. Okay, if that gives you any context. Yeah, 3,000 was my average order. 5,000 was my average day. 120 grand. Picked out all the jewelry. I told him what classes he needed to take. I told him everything he needed to do. Drove to his credit union. They cut a check for like 85 from his credit union to me. He had a personal check and then a credit card it was all paid in full at the time of the order too, is my point.
Hell yeah.
120 closed and paid. The rest of the moral of the story of, was he successful and all that, that's a different discussion. But I think we do the big deals by doing the regular daily business, keeping our posture correct. I've done a lot of talking. I'll shut up and let you kind of jump in a little bit here.
I didn't want to interrupt your story because when I think about sales, there's so much more to it than just picking up the phone and calling the damn leads. As much as I try to simplify it to that, which is a big portion of it, relationship building, cadence, understanding that push pull, and really the big deals do typically come from doing the daily work. That's what's so interesting to me. And when you said that, I went like, oh, that's so good. That's definitely going to be one of our clips because that's the truth. Is you doing the daily work, having the conversations, going out, understanding the clients, understanding the industry, knowing your product and service better than anyone else on the planet, respectfully, that's what makes you successful. And that's what allows you to be in the position to close those kinds of deals because, yes, could you have continued to push on the guy and gone some different ways? Maybe. But the fact that you were willing to step back and say, hey, there's some deals that are not worth doing, that's what also helps you get to the point where you can do those big deals. Because if you're always chasing something, you're always living in scarcity, you're never going to be open up to receiving to that next level. And from a sales perspective, one of the biggest takeaways is always like, don't sell out of your own pocket. Just because you're used to doing a $3,000 or a $5,000 deal doesn't mean you don't have what it takes to close a six-figure deal. You just have to put yourself in position by doing the daily work. And that's, I think, to me, one of the biggest takeaways of your story, brother.
The other one that come in handy was the integrity piece. I initially tried to talk him out of it. And that was out of just love for him as another fellow human being. I didn't want to see if I can't help you, I don't want to hurt you. No matter what happens for me. You know what I'm saying? Can't put a price on the integrity. So get to year 2 and 3 and he's starting to really, 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 I'm never going to say if he regretted it or making the decision or not, but when the time came when he was like, yeah, this isn't, working out as good as hey brother, I tried to talk you out of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it really felt good that I had that integrity piece and I was able to lean on that later in the relationship. I'm not the SOB that sold him on it. I didn't convince him to do nothing. Mm-hmm. I wanted to help him be successful. And I gave him every opportunity I possibly could. So
I think that's an important part for, and I believe why we connected so deeply the way that we did, because that is my approach too. I'll have a conversation with you. If I know it can work, then in my heart of hearts, it's my duty now to make sure I've done everything I can to get you there. But if I also know that it can't, I'm going to be the first one to go, listen, let me just I know you want this. Let me share my perspective with you. If you still want to do it after that, like, I will do everything in my power to make sure you're in a position to have that result. However, based on experience, knowledge, and education in this industry, here's where I want to open your mind up to seeing some outside the box perspective, because you don't know what you don't know, right? That's why we get in rooms like the Builders of Authority event or the OG crew. Like, that's part of what we do, is we want to get around people who know what we don't, so that we can build that relationship and share. And I think it's so valuable and so important for the listener to understand that if you're in sales, sometimes being the straight shooter and just telling them, hey, this is not going to be the expectation that you're thinking it is, or at least just educating them to a point where they have the ability to make a more informed decision, that's huge. And it will lead you to closing much, much bigger deals. I've had very similar stories. I won't get too deep for the sake of time, but hey, sometimes telling someone you don't want to do this weirdly gets them to want to do it more. And at least if
Oh,
you've
that's
been
a
the straight
fact.
shooter, like, hey, maybe this guy comes back and he says, hey, man, you know what? I want to get out of the business. I know you'll take care of me and shoot me straight. What's my stuff worth? How can we make a deal to make sense? And that's that long-term relationship building that you talked about too, where it's just kind of like, hey, man, you got to build relationship. You got to connect with these people. And through doing so, that's where these doors open and opportunities arise.
Yeah, I truly think no matter who, I'm not employable. You know what I'm saying? I've always worked for myself. I am not employable. I had somebody convince me to take their line and carry it. I've always done my own thing. And I didn't like her order book or ticket.
Mm-hmm.
I rewrote it and gave it to my printer and had him print it up. And I said, hey, I rewrote your shit. And she was like, what? I'm like, yeah, well, that's just how it is if you want me to work with you. You know what I'm saying? Now, if I had a real job like for Citizen Watch, shit, they'd have sued me for that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not employable. So the point is, those of us that are in sales, we work for ourselves. I don't care whose name is on the check or what company we're representing, but we work for ourselves. It's our brand, and we cannot ever, for any amount of money, for any amount of convenience, or anything, compromise our integrity.
Come on,
That's our
baby.
gold. That's our gold, man. We got to protect it with everything.
So I want to touch on that because, there's a lot of things that we could chat, and I'm sure we'll get a chance to do another call and go even deeper because I know you've got a lot of great lessons and stories to share. When you talk about building the legacy, right, with Mark's Jewelers, you are one of the biggest in your area. You're taking over the town, but it's because you've been there, you've solidified yourself by being a straight shooter. How are you translating what you've learned in the industry to your children and family for the legacy of your jewelry store?
So it's tough. It's tough. I'm like a vision person. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like a visionary type, and I got a real good idea in my head, and getting it out of my head and onto paper where people can actually understand where I'm going and what I'm trying to do. Them having confidence and faith in me is one thing, but for them to understand what the plan is, because I suck at, and that's frankly why I'm hooked up with you, among other people, but specifically why I'm hooked up with you is to get help with that, which I know you can. So
Absolutely.
I kind of lost my thought a little bit there, but I think
Well,
the
so
big
that's
thing
but
is
that's a good point because you're a visionary, right? You see the big picture, and so this opens it up because this is one of those things, and I know this is why we're working together. Kind of why I like to ask the question because in real time, people who are also visionaries can understand that sometimes if you've got a lot of great ideas, but you're not exactly sure how to get them out of your head and onto paper, you want to surround yourself with people who are what I think the term is an integrator, right? Visionary integrator. If you go read Rocket Fuel or Traction by Gino Wickman, they go into the depths of like what those actually are inside the business. But the visionary gets all the big picture. And the integrator actually is someone like myself who's like, okay, cool, I've got all the big puzzle. Like, I see the puzzle on the outside. I know what the picture looks like. Now I'm going to open the box and pull all the pieces out, and I'm going to put it together and make it happen for you. And we're going to build this picture and make it a reality. And that's where understanding systems and processes and routines comes into play. And what I would guess for you, Charles, and I know because we've talked about this, but you know in your head exactly how something's supposed to work, right? You rewrote the ticket sheet for the lady because you're like, this doesn't make any sense. This isn't logical. It doesn't flow. Here's the steps. This is why we needed to do this way. And what we're going to work on together is putting that on paper and helping you build that out. And so if you're listening to this and you've had that experience, let me encourage you, go pick up the books, Traction and Rocket Fuel. They will express and explain the visionary integrator side of things. But also find someone in your network, get connected, find a group of people who can help you understand how to bring that to reality. And that's one of the things that, is really cool about events that we, get to be a part of, like Builders of Authority, is we get to meet people who have a strength in some area that we're looking for, and then we get to bring that wisdom. And I know I'm excited for you, Charles, to bring some wisdom to our community, because this is one of those things, like, I would love to know more about how gold and silver and all of that can actually be a standard for money and investing. And one of the things you were teaching me about is kind of how that works. And so I apologize, my dog's acting all crazy over there because the landscapers are outside. But the point is, like, when you get in the right room with the right people and have the right conversations, the right things happen. And I'm grateful that we've had the opportunity to connect and to learn and to grow. And so if someone was listening to this today, Charles, and they thought, like, hey, man, I really like this guy's, the cut of his jib, as they say, how could they come and find you? Like, do you guys have a website? Is there a place where they can come and check out more of your content? Because I know you're doing a lot of educating people as well.
Yeah, marksjewelryco.com is the website. You can find me on Facebook, Charles Marks. I got a blue check. It's not hard to find me at all. Before we wrap out, I think the other thing is knowing your lane, right? So we have made some decisions and we sell things that other people in our industry aren't really strong on right now. And it's because I very much in my heart of hearts believe this is what is the best opportunity for the customer that's in the market today. So somebody walks in, they got sold by somebody else's flyer or TV commercial or ad. They walk through, they ask for, hey, do you have XYZ? I could go to Costco and buy it for $18 or $185. No, this is what we're doing. And then I show them and sell them. Instead of taking the order, we sell and we give them the bigger, better deal. So to answer your question, also, aside from that, the visionary and the struggle with becoming the integrator, which is what I'm doing, is also knowing your shit and being better than everybody else. And just because your competition has $1 billion marketing budget and all this, that doesn't make them smarter or better or wiser.
Man, that's the truth. And what's cool is that it's the unicorns, the standout people, the ones who do things differently that break the mold and ultimately go on to create that legacy. And they're the ones who differentiate and change the market forever because they choose not to do things like everybody else just for the sake of doing it like everybody else. And that's one of the things I love about you, Chuck. And one of the things I would say, if you were listening to this, make sure you're following this guy. Make sure you're listening to what he has to say. He's got a lot of knowledge, and where it all comes from is serving the individual, making sure that whoever's on the other side of that transaction is getting exactly what they want and what they need at a price that makes sense. And that's why I'm grateful to have you to be a part of our crew, man. Before we get out of here, I always like to ask this, because let's just say sales is the greatest industry of all time. There's new people coming into this thing every single day. Maybe someone's new, they get here, this is like one of the first things that they happen to find. Lucky them. What piece of advice would you give them on how to go be successful in this industry?
So we could do a whole thing on that, but I'd say 3 things that I've done. Our brain is not always our friend. So sometimes I got to tell this motherfucker to keep coming back. Thanks for sharing, but keep coming back. Like, don't listen to our brain. Don't let that inner self talk get in our way. 2, we've got that pure piece of God inside us. That's our gut. And when our gut is telling us something, we got to figure out how to quiet all this shit down and listen to this and go with our gut. And finally, man, don't quit even if your ass falls off. That's a broad advice, but that's to give 3 points. That's it, man.
Now it explains why I've got such a flat ass, buddy, because I just won't quit. And even if it falls off, I ain't going to quit. So I'm still running and gunning. I love that advice, man. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to be here with us. It really does mean the world to me that we have an opportunity to build a relationship, to share this knowledge with the community around us. And ultimately, one person's going to hear it. They're going to make some changes. They're going to go out and they're going to do something amazing with their life because you took a moment to share. So don't ever forget how awesome that is, man. And those of you that are listening, if you enjoyed the show, make sure you go follow Chuck. Make sure you share this on social media. Tell a friend about it. Talk about it so that more people can see us. And if you have a crazy story and you want to be on the show, I need you to go to callthedamnleads.com/podcast. Send me your information so we can get you booked in here, man. Appreciate y'all. We'll see you on the next one.
Fails, call the damn leads.
That's it, baby. You were just finishing up for me because that's what I always like to say. You guys know what it is. Thank you, Chuck, for being here. As always, I'll remind you, we'll see you on the next one. Go call those damn leads. Take care, y'all.